One day, the zookeeper noticed that the orangutan was reading two books, the Bible and Darwin's Origin of Species. So he's surprised about that, so he asked Dave, why are you reading both these books? Well, said the orangutan, I just wanted to know if I was my brother's keeper or my keeper's brother. You know, I'm sure we all have asked ourselves these questions at some time in our life. Why am I here? What's my reason for being? What's my purpose for this life that I'm living? So many people go through life, day by day, just struggling to make ends meet, and just to stay alive and to live for the next day. Never realizing any happiness because of the belief that it's something to find. I have to find happiness, however that may be, through someone else, through a new job, or through something like a new house or a new car. In other words, to find my purpose out there somewhere. See? I remember my first son, Mark, was born. I remember holding him in my arms. This was 6 months later, by the way, but at the time of his birth, just holding him in my arms and just at an awe, wondering and pondering about this mystery of birth. Oh. Of course, the tears started coming down my face because it was so awesome, it was so overwhelming. And as I held him, I couldn't help but think, what will he do? What will he do? Will he be a teacher? Will he be a lawyer, or a doctor, or an engineer, or a minister, or what? Will he work with his hands, or will he work with his mind? Will he contribute to the lives of others? Will, the world be a better place because he lived? And I look back on that now and I realize I never asked the question, I wonder if he will be happy. So natural of us, isn't it? Or should I say unnatural of us, to ask everything but the most significant question. And what do we do when we meet someone for the first time? And we start to get into a conversation, we eventually say to them, well, what do you do? Right? I mean, am I wrong? Right. Can you even imagine asking the question, what's your purpose in life? Sounds ridiculous, right? I think we might even end the relationship right there. Who knows? And yet we all struggle for this meaning of life. Can't help but question and consider our purpose, to discover perhaps our mission. Why am I here? What talents do I have? What spiritual gifts? And of course, to find our life's work. What am I supposed to be doing? And so we venture out into life to discover our purpose. We go to college, get a job in the field of our interest, find a life partner, and voila, we are happy. Maybe there is an inner and an outer purpose to our life. That if we happen to discover that inner purpose before we would venture out into this world of making a living, trying to find ourselves, we'd be so much more prepared, understand what we want out of our life, our outer purpose. Maybe, just maybe, we have all this backwards. Before we can have a life of meaning and contribute constructively to the world, we really should first discover our inner purpose. Eckhart Tolle, the best-selling author, Power of Now, in other words, living in the present moment, also had another book out. It's called A New Earth, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose. Awakening to Your Life's Purpose. And he did a series of shows with Oprah Winfrey. And they were taped and on video. I've got a little bit of that today where Eckhart Tolle tells us about our inner and our outer purpose.
We're discussing chapter 9, your inner purpose. Finding your purpose is what I believe we're all put on the planet to do. So many people spend their lives, trying to figure out what job to do, what to do. I think when you figure out what your purpose is and you align the outer purpose with the inner purpose, then the job really doesn't matter. Yes, right? That's the essence of what you're saying in this chapter. Let us begin, page 257. As soon as you rise above mere survival, the question of meaning and purpose becomes of paramount importance in your life. Many people feel caught up in the routines of daily living, you say, that seem to deprive their life of significance. Some believe life is passing them by or has passed them by already. Others feel severely restricted by the demands of their job and supporting a family. Some are consumed by stress, lost in frantic doing. Many people long for the freedom and expansion that prosperity promises. Others already enjoy the freedom that comes with prosperity and discover that even that's not enough to endow their lives with true meaning. There is no substitute for finding true purpose. So how do we do it?
Now, what you just read basically, of course, means that many people spend their lives in a state of almost permanent dissatisfaction,
right?
Unfortunately. So they may be looking for some purpose, or they may have given up hope that there is some purpose for them, and they're just surviving or making a living.
Or caught up in the doing.
Caught up in the doing, in the stress of it.
Right.
And so usually when we talk about purpose, when people talk about purpose, they think of purpose in terms of future. Where am I going? What am I supposed to do? What's the direction I'm going in? What is my goal? The goal that I want to achieve? And that, of course, is there. It has its place, but I call that the outer purpose. More fundamental than the outer purpose is what most people usually overlook, and that is the realization that what matters most is finding your inner purpose. So, inner purpose is aligning your life fully with the present moment, so that you are no longer out of alignment with the present moment, which leads to the state of dissatisfaction that we talked about, that is the reality for many people. So you have to go, first of all, beyond the state of dissatisfaction that is so many people's reality.
Right.
But you cannot go beyond the state of dissatisfaction through some future goal that says, one day I would like to be in a state of fulfillment or satisfaction. No, you have to enter the state of fulfillment and satisfaction by becoming one internally with the present moment. And your purpose then, your inner purpose, is that alignment with where you are right now, to be totally where you are, and whatever you are doing, even if it doesn't look like the life purpose that you want for the next 30 years, whatever you are doing now, to be total in doing it, and no matter what it is, to be true to life by being true to this moment.
So what he's saying here, that your inner purpose is being in the present moment. What does that mean? It means it can't be found on the outer level. It's not a matter of what you do with your life, but what you are. In your state of consciousness. That's what he's talking about, the state of consciousness. And is it in alignment with God? To awaken to your truth, simple as that. Awaken to your truth. Not always so simple, a lot harder if your outer belief system, if your ego keeps getting in the way. So what Tolle is saying here, that our inner purpose is part of the very same purpose of all humanity, the purpose of the whole, the universe, its emerging intelligence, all part of this, what we call the evolution of consciousness. And our outer purpose certainly can change over time, can vary from person to person, but it is to find and to live in alignment then with our inner purpose, which of course should be the foundation for fulfilling all that we want to do in the outer purpose. Very basis for achieving true success, as he says. That's why I say maybe we have all of this backwards. Without that alignment with my inner purpose, sure, I can still achieve certain satisfaction through my efforts, struggle, determination, sheer hard work, even just being maybe a little shady or cunning sometimes, but there is no joy, and usually ends up in some form of stress, some inner dissatisfaction. Oh, 9 to 5, can't wait for the bell to ring so I can go home. Spirit calls us to this inner purpose. Sometimes in very subtle ways, and other times we get hit over the head with a 2x4, don't we? How better off we would be if we had really been aware of our spirituality when we were 18 or 19 years old. I mean, I was 50 years old by the time I learned. I've been in the Methodist Church and been active and so forth, but it was until I got into unity that I really discovered my true spirituality. And I've been to Unity Village when there's been the YOUers there, the youth of unity. These are the teenagers. There'll be 300-400 of them out there all meditating together, going through classes, understanding who they are and what their spirituality is all about. And it's amazing. Wouldn't you have liked to have done that at 18, 19, even as a teenager? Wow. Well, one thing we know is that those things that are spiritual are the same for everyone. Spirit has no favorites. We're all equal in God's mind. What is offered to everyone is also offered is our inner purpose. There are just different ways of expressing it. However, it all comes down to this: to know God and to experience the presence. To know God and experience the presence. And it can't come when we give all our attention solely to the world and to material goods. If we were solely human beings, then worldly concerns and whatever it bears would be enough, be good enough. But we're not just human beings, we're spiritual beings having this human experience, created so that the Creator can express itself through us. Our inner purpose then is to know that Creator, you see, our source to the fullest that we're capable of, to experience source while we're here on earth. We all have this innate longing, this pulling, if you will, within each of us to become who and what we truly are. Child of God, a manifestation of God, seeking to be expressed. But the bottom line is this: it's my choice as to how much I desire to seek it. It's my choice. I have to tell you a little story of my sister regarding to seeking things. She came to live with my former wife and myself because she was pregnant out of wedlock. Had to have her baby away from, of course, all of the negative thinking that goes on at that time with others. And so she had a little girl in the hospital, and she gave it out for adoption. Well, for 25, 30 years, through her mind and in her consciousness was always that seeking to know who her daughter was, where her daughter was, and what did she do, do I have grandkids, and what have you. Just that constant. In fact, she got to the point one time, I guess it was almost 30 years later, she went to a class one time and they started talking about how you can find loved ones through adoption. So somehow she got some records. I don't know how she did that. Anyway, she started making telephone calls. And lo and behold, one person she called, she asked this question because it was the birth date. Does the date May 27th, 1971 mean anything to you? Bingo. There was a daughter. And they made a contact. They started to get together with each other, and they learned all about each other and learned that she had a couple grandkids, and they now are still in touch with each other. They see each other as often as they possibly can. And what she also found out was that her daughter was longing to know who her mother was. That feeling of yearning that my niece had and that my sister had to know who she was. And deep down in her very soul, every day thinking of it. That's the feeling I'm talking about. See? As we seek to know God, to know our spiritual purpose, that kind of feeling. And sometimes even after we finally realize who and what we are and we discover our truth, we find ourselves doing work. Possibly it doesn't conform or is not in alignment with that inner spiritual purpose. Well, what do we do then? Well, let's see what Eckhart Tolle has to say about that.
So here we are, week 9, only one more class to go, and I bet so many people can relate to this. Many people, you say on page 262, who are going through the early stages of awakening are no longer certain what their outer purpose is. A woman from Milwaukee, Oregon just wrote, can you still be 52 years old and be in the same place Ivy was at the beginning of the show, not knowing what you want to do? So what do you do in this case? If you're at this point in your life where reading this book has shaken you up and you realize more than ever what you don't want to do. You realize, I have been on the wrong course. You realize you have an awakening.
Yes.
Now what do you do?
Yes.
I'm all awakened.
Yes.
Now what?
Well, the awakening, of course, is the realization of your inner purpose primarily.
Yes.
So don't come into conflict with where you are now or what you're doing now. If you cannot surrender to what you're doing now and be okay with it, at least bring acceptance. We talk about in the next chapter. Mm-hmm. At least bring acceptance to whatever you're doing now, so that you are okay with it. That is vital. Then you are in a state of clarity. You enter a state of clarity when you're no longer in opposition to your present moment, life, where you live or what you're doing. If you cannot surrender, if whatever you are doing continues to produce unhappiness in you, and no matter how hard you try, then of course it's a clear sign that you need to leave that situation.
Right.
So either you let go of the resistance and see if you can, and sometimes people say, no, I can't, but what they really mean is, no, I'm not willing to.
Not willing to, which
So
is very different.
You need to see the difference between not being able to and not being willing to, and whatever applies to you. Am I not willing to accept this moment, or am I truly incapable of accepting this moment? If you find you're truly incapable of accepting this moment when you're doing your job or whatever you're doing, then it is a sign that it's time for change.
Got it.
Many times you will be able to have this energy flow into what you're doing already and transform how you do perhaps what you've been doing for many years, perhaps in a state of resistance, and suddenly how you do it changes. You're no longer doing it in a state of inner resistance. And then you bring a completely different energy into what you do. Consciousness flows into what you do. And often, either this is deeply fulfilling, it affects many people around you, or it could also happen that now that you're no longer resisting what you do, change suddenly comes into your life.
I got that.
And let's face it, it's never over, is it? All through life. Our inner purpose gives meaning to ourselves, even to the moment we get to that point where we make our transition to another eternal life. Because we're always evolving, everyone is. The whole society and the culture and our world is evolving, seeking to express who we really are. We find that we can do it only through one energy, the energy of love. Love for God, love for our Creator, loving ourselves, loving others, experiencing God and the fulfillment as much as we possibly can. And it's so true. Your inner purpose is to awaken. As simple as that. You share that purpose with every other person on the planet because it is the purpose of humanity. Remember what Jesus said, first seek his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things shall be yours as well. It's in Matthew 6, verse 33. And it was a promise as well as a challenge. So we all do have the same purpose. To know God, to love God, to know ourselves. And that's what we call our unity of purpose. So I leave you with this question to ask yourself this coming week. If indeed my spiritual purpose is to know God, what more can I do to open myself to that experience? God bless you. God bless Unity of Port St. Lucie, because you are the only one that